Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of LMScast. I am Joshua Millage, and I'm here with Christopher Badgett. Today, we are talking about the power of education-based marketing and e-learning businesses. And we're going to cover a couple of different topics, just the context for e-learning. We're going to talk about e-learning for profit as well as e-learning for marketing purposes. And we're going to follow up all of that with some ideas on corporate training and other applications for e-learning. So Chris, take it away, buddy.
All right. Well, one of the interesting things when we're designing our learning management system WordPress plugin is making it so it can work with all these different situations. Like we mentioned in the last episode, e-learning needs can go pretty custom based on the use case. So we're designing our plugin so it can really extend into these different areas. And the biggest example of that is the debate between free versus paid. There's a lot of times you want to do e-learning training for free. It's not a business. It might be a nonprofit thing. It might be an internal training tool for a company and so on. Or you may be more of a solo entrepreneur looking to share your knowledge and really build a revenue stream, a side income, or even your full-time income that could even get quite large. So that's one of the major distinctions. And the other one is like, how small are you? Are you a solopreneur or subject matter expert of some kind? Or are you a large organization like a university with lots of teachers, or a publishing company with lots of authors with educational material? So it's all about context. That's where it all starts.
That's great. That's great. And so what are some examples of that, Chris? What do you think, when is it appropriate to give things away for free? Or like, what's a way of thinking through all of that?
Well, I think we should probably start with the most obvious example that comes with, I'm a solo entrepreneur. Let's say I want to start from scratch and just build a product, an e-learning product. In the past, people would think about things like using a WordPress blog, and I'm just going to put all my knowledge and information here, and it's just going to kind of spill out over time, which is great, but it's not really curated and organized in such a way. Then what came next was, okay, I'm going to get a little more organized, and I'm going to dump that in a membership site. And I'm sure we'll do another episode about that, but the thing that happens with people or entrepreneurs get into membership sites is they often get a little too focused on conversion and closing that sale and not on the actual e-learning experience that happens, what's inside the program, and really having it work in a way where the student has the highest likelihood of completing the program and the material.
Yeah.
But let's start by just looking at that. If I'm somebody who has a particular skill, give me a skill that I'm going to build an e-learning product around. What would you want an example of?
Let's do like oil changes.
Oil changes, perfect. So I may be a 25-year-old auto mechanic, and I know there's a bunch. If we get over this whole thing like we have to be the best in the world, I can guarantee there's a 15, 16, 17-year-old out there who's trying to get a job at auto mechanic place, and in certain places the job market is really competitive, even in things like oil changes.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to learn how to do the perfect oil change, or learn how to do it on a certain type of vehicle and that sort of thing, if I go, I might find some random YouTube videos and stuff. But if I'm a mechanic and I want to create a business, as an entrepreneur, I would ask myself, how ubiquitous or widespread is the need to have an oil change?
Yeah.
It's huge. How many auto mechanics are in the world? It's huge. If I tried to host a how to do an oil change course in my hometown, let's say I live in a small town, I probably wouldn't make any money. If I offered that to the world and it's pretty good, I could make significant income. So I would start by kind of organizing the process and taking somebody from, I don't know anything about mechanics, to, okay, here's how you successfully complete an oil change with minimal tools. So that involves creating videos, taking some pictures with some arrows on it, talking about the theory of oil changes and, general things to watch out for and so on. And then I publish that on my WordPress learning management system platform. I put a price tag on that. I may want to limit, okay, you have access for 30 days. you have access forever. I may want a new lesson to come up every day, so it's like a week of learning and they're not distracted by jumping around. I'd have all those options. But that would be an example of creating an e-learning product as an entrepreneur.
That's pretty cool, man. That's really cool. And so I think, like, the one thing that's interesting to me is it's I love how you went back to the point of, like, I have to be the best. Like, get over your head trash and create it. Put it in a system that's easy to use, like some of the other options up there, or the new one that we're coming out with in the next couple months. The LifterLMS plugin, and just get it out there and try and connect with people and get feedback and iterate it and see what happens. And I think that's how all great businesses have been formed. When you really break it down, it's putting something out there and refining it. But it's so cheap and easy to do now. It's really, I think, the main thing that stops people is just that head trash of, like, is it good or not? And I love that. So there's also other benefits that you've mentioned to me in our conversations about even just having content in a structured format can help with SEO. That's just like a nice byproduct, right? I mean, things like, just Google is now valuing people who create really, really high content more than they ever have. They always have, but now it's really, really important. So you start to put that in a structured format. I mean, what can that do for somebody?
Well, it's incredible. And I'll start with an experience in my own life of just teaching people how to build WordPress website, by structuring that in I'm going to do this for the complete beginner, start from square one. I'm going to record some videos. I'm going to have the ability for people to ask me questions in there if they get stuck. I've had a lot of people go through that, and then I make that free. It's just a way for me to master my skill and also just connect with the world. And from that process, I don't know how many tens of thousands, I haven't calculated the exact number, of income I've been able to generate of people who have come through my program and either got their website started and then they're like, I want to take it to the next level, I'm going to call Chris. Or they get stuck and they need some help getting over a hump, or they need some consulting to take it even further. So that's a personal example of using education-based marketing well structured in a WordPress LMS system. The other way to look at it, that's like the small example. Like a big example, if you're like a major brand or you work for a major brand and you're in charge of new revenue streams, new traffic sources, new content. There's just a huge opportunity for people to create this educational material as the marketing because, as you know, you're a brilliant marketer, Josh. Interruption marketing, things like billboards and spam emails or whatever, just the old school way of in-your-face marketing is people just need higher human touch and trust before they do business these days. And social media has kind of made it so like businesses have to be really aware, like we don't want to mess up. That's because this word will spread. So there's a big mindset shift going on where the marketer has to build that trust and even give value before they ask for the sale. There's no better way to do that than through e-learning material.
Yeah, you're right. And I think there, just to add a little bit to that, I had in another podcast that I'm a part of, I do a segment on Tuesdays with a brilliant guy named Brett Martineau. In the last episode, we talked about a lot of how, the direct response style of marketing is, I think, in kind of an interesting phase. Like this whole, give me something, I'll give you something, very transactional. I think it's great. I do. I like direct response marketing. But I think that the millennial generation in particular grew up in that. They have really great BS detectors, and they can tell when they're about to be sold quicker and faster than anyone else. And so I think you're right to highlight what you said about building trust and building a relationship prior to doing any sort of selling is going to be more and more and more crucial. There is no better way to do that, to build trust, than to teach someone something that they can actually implement on their own. Actually changes the way that they do things. I think the best example of that in today's world is Tim Ferriss. I think Tim Ferriss's blog, he just curates such an amazing group of people, and he tells these stories and he gives things to do. And I on his slow carb diet that I came a couple years back, he did a post about it, and then it was in his book, 4 Hour Body. I lost like 15 pounds off of that. Are you kidding me? Of course I'm going to buy the book. Like,
Yeah,
you know? And this is getting a little bit out of the LMS space because he's doing it in the older fashion of the blog. But I mean, that's just a great example is he taught me something. I did what he taught. I followed the steps. It worked. Now he's got, I like buy 4 books at a time and give them to all my friends, you know? I mean, he has a raving fan. And I think that can be true of anyone. I think it can be true of someone like your wife who does gardening. You know, you doing the timber pimps, the the woodworking stuff. I mean, if you give someone something, you teach them how to do something, and then it works and they like that, why wouldn't they come back for the other stuff? Because you prove to them that you're legit. And the last few, 10 years, we've had so many, I like the internet marketing world, but there's been a lot of horrible internet marketers who come out there who are great at selling, horrible at content, and you buy their stuff, you do exactly what they said, nothing happens, and it's a bummer. So I think we're going to see a real interesting shift in marketing, and I think if you have a heart and a desire to do e-learning, you're going to be ahead of the curve without question.
And that's what I'm talking about in terms of like we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're going to like kind of transcend it. We're going to take the concept of membership site to a whole new level. We're going to take the idea of direct response marketing to a whole new level. And it's not just for internet marketers, it's also for those entrepreneurs, educators, and subject matter experts. We can, by coming in and using e-learning as your main marketing method or as just something to do in your mix, you're just going to, it's like a growth hack. You're going to be doing more cutting edge stuff. And there's just so much opportunity, even in the internet marketing space. Exactly what you just said, there's an internet marketer named Frank Kern, and he has a simple concept that is really powerful and that speaks to exactly what we're talking about here, and it's simply called results in advance.
Yeah.
So before you do ask for the sale, give the user or the prospect results in advance. And what we're building on top of that, saying, okay, let's give them results in advance. Let's give them a lot of results in advance, because when you structure an LMS or e-learning deal properly, that material can generate a lot of value.
Yeah.
And so that kind of results in advance we're just taking that to a whole new level.
Well, and this is a concept that I've really been thinking a lot about, and I don't want to digress too far into it because it might get a little off topic. But I think it's gonna be harder in the future to get emails from people. That classic, like, let me give you a report, you give me your email. I think what we're going to start to see is before you can even ask for the email, you have to teach them something, and then at the end of the course, ask for their email. Like, it's going to get that way, and I think I think if people all started to do that, they would have a much better list that they could build, and B, a much more responsive list, because you said, hey, before even your email, just go through this e-learning course I have on my WordPress site here, and using a plugin like ours, and then at the end of it say, hey, I've got a lot of other great content I'd love to send you. Here's my email. Boom. I mean, we're talking about doing this in a non-paid scenario. I think it's something that I think we're going to see more of. We're going to have to see more of, because it's just it'll cut through the dirt. So. That's great, man. Well, tell me a little bit about other things. You mentioned corporate training and other applications for e-learning that we might not be thinking about. I mean, we've talked a lot about marketing solopreneurs, but there's a lot of other applications for this.
Absolutely. So, and that was a challenge with building the LifterLMS plugin, is how do we make it so there's all these components in there in a nice, clean code base that people can turn on and off what they need, because there is patterns. But what happens is people get into the mix and they're like, okay, I need certification, I want to have assignments, I don't want to have prerequisites, and people just start customizing, and that's good, and that's one of the reasons our plugin is so powerful, and the e-learning WordPress LMS industry is so powerful, because it's super customizable. But in a corporate training example, the classic example is simply continuing education. Let's say at your job, whether that's with the state or with a professional organization, like you're a pharmacist or a lawyer or whatever, and you need continuing education, you can have an e-learning platform that brings people to get their continuing education credits. There's quizzes, which is a functionality that many people use. Some people won't. You can set passing percentages. Then they can't get to the certificate and get their continuing education credits until they're done with that. And our plugin is, one of the amazing things it does is it can automatically generate the certificate and really automate that whole process of continuing education. So there's a big opportunity for small businesses and large corporations to improve, automate, and better engage their people in their training needs, whether there's hard, really strict requirements, or it's really soft, or even if it's kind of the extra credit kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the corporate training example.
And with the solutions that are in that realm in particular, they're not very dynamic, they're not very customizable, they're not fun to use. And I think there's some advantages now. WordPress has definitely improved itself. You can make it very secure. You can do a lot with it. So I don't think if there's anybody listening who's like, I don't know, Chris, like corporations, like how could WordPress fit into it? I just want to back that up and say it's now more than ever you can take WordPress and really crank it down into a beautiful system for the corporate world. And there's amazing sites right now, really I think New York Times is on WordPress, right?
That's true. And I even learned recently that
yeah.
FreshBooks is on WordPress. That whole accounting software is cloud-based software is a WordPress site.
No way.
Yeah, I just learned that. It blew me away. And now these days I kind of laugh when I hear like skepticism about WordPress. And I'm sure we'll do a whole episode on why we chose WordPress. But one of the biggest beautiful points of WordPress is that it's open source and super extendable. Mm-hmm. Our plugin extends it. Matt Mullenweg, the founder of Automatic, the figurehead behind WordPress, changed the company mission from WordPress being a platform to democratize publishing. He added 2 words to the end of that. It's now a platform to democratize publishing and development. So essentially, we're coming in with this e-learning thing right at that point where we're not just creating brochures and blogs. This is actually developing cloud applications for learning management. It's really pretty amazing, and that can be extended, into the corporation. You can do it for nonprofit. We mentioned Charity Water in another episode, and let's say you just want to educate people on how they can help solve this, impending crisis of fresh, clean drinking water in the world. You can create education-based content around that, mm-hmm. just to help get your mission and your vision out in a bigger way. So if you have something to teach, you can use an e-learning platform to do it and customize it to meet your needs.
I love it. Well, Chris, if anyone has any questions, I want to let them know that they can reach out to me or you directly. My email is joshua@lmscast.com. Chris is chris@lms.com. Feel free. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear about content that you want us to create or questions that you may have about things we talked about today. Chris, let's end it with a little bit about what we're creating, this plugin that we're creating. Tell the folks how it can benefit what we talked about today.
Yeah, well, LifterLMS, the WordPress LMS plugin, is going to have these components that you can snap in, snap out, turn on, turn off. And we're doing it in such a way, we've combined technologies where you don't need all these clunky third-party plugins to make the thing work. We're being really smart, really lightweight about it, and just with our incredible development team building out a solution that is really extendable and customizable and autonomous, can work on its own with any WordPress theme. And whether you need to do education-based marketing or you have a simple or complex, paid e-commerce style WordPress LMS, it can do all that. And really what I would encourage you to do is to head on over to LifterLMS.com and just look at the feature set. And when you read all those bullet points or those features, you don't have to do it all. Very few people will need everything on there, but it's like a choose your own adventure. Start putting those features together and, you'll start to see what you can do and what you can bring to life in e-learning and generate income, change the world, or just be a better marketer.
I love it. Well, on that note, we will see everyone next